Okay, so hi everyone. My name is Leanne Ardley and I'm a principal solution architect working with High Tide Consulting out of Canada. I've been working in the Salesforce ecosystem for about 9 years. I started out as a Salesforce admin, but I've spent most of my time in consulting and specialising in Salesforce CPQ. I attended my first session with the Dublin user group earlier this year while visiting family in Ireland, which is what brought me here today. So thanks for having me. I put together an agenda for today's session that I hoped would help you to understand why customers use CPQ, give you an overview of the technical side of the architecture. We'll talk about what licensing and tools you might use in an implementation. We'll do a bit of an introduction into RLM or Revenue Lifecycle Management, and we'll conclude on some thoughts and a Q&A. But if you have questions, I'm happy to take those throughout as well. So, wanted to start off with a question of, like, to get to know people's knowledge of CPQ at this point. So, I know we've got a lot of people on, so maybe just if people could comment if they're with their level, and we can just take a minute to check out those comments.
I'm always hesitant to put down expert, personally, especially with CPQ, because there's always something else.
Well, we won't ask you any difficult questions, Kieran. You know, like, even with CPQ, there's so much with it. It's like you will never have touched everything. You know, even with all the time that I've been working on it, you never would. You know, so yeah. 2. Okay, lots of 2s. 1, I like the fractions as well. 2.5, 2.75. Okay, great. Thanks for the interaction. Okay, so then we'll move on to, I'll just start with an introduction on the first section. So we'll talk about why customers would consider using Salesforce CPQ. We'll talk about what is CPQ. We'll set the stage with a customer use case, and we'll talk about before and after CPQ so that you can see the difference. We'll do a short demo of the bundling feature for this customer use case, and I'll jump into the system. We'll discuss what customers might have been using before CPQ, and we'll compare some of the features between standard quotes and CPQ quotes as well. And so that'll round out this first section. So firstly, CPQ stands for Configure, Price, Quote, and it's named after the main features that the package offers. So that is configuring or setting up what products you want to sell, pricing those products, and quoting or generating an output document. But it does have lots of other features, and we'll be discussing those as well in this session. It's now offered by Salesforce as a license managed package, but it was originally built by Steelbrick and was acquired by Salesforce in 2015. So on the right, you'll see some of the ROI or return on investment that CPQ customers achieve with this tool. But ultimately, when you boil it down, the main reason I see customers purchase CPQ is because they want to scale their business. So speaking of scaling, scalability, we'll talk about a customer who wants to scale, and we'll first look at how they were operating before CPQ and some of the issues they were facing. And then we'll talk about the benefits once they had adopted CPQ. So Cork Office Supplies is a company that I made up who sell office supplies out of Cork in Ireland. They started out in Cork and have recently expanded to operating nationwide, and they have their sites on the European market. So really the word scalability coming in here. But they're having some problems with their quoting today, which is happening in spreadsheets. So firstly, they're seeing that revenue is being lost due to reps forgetting to sell related products together. Revenue is also being lost due to pricing and discounting being very manual and error prone. And the sales cycle is being delayed due to slow email approvals. They're also seeing that they're having unhappy customers due to incorrect information in their quote documents. So this is the before CPQ, and a lot of customers kind of don't know or don't realize the pains that they're having. But with their growth in mind, they invested in Salesforce CPQ, which has allowed them to sell related products together in bundles, thereby increasing their revenue. They've automated their pricing and discounting, which is also increasing revenue. They've streamlined their approvals, which has expedited the sales process. And they've standardized their quote documents, which has increased customer satisfaction. So now, if we look back at the ROI metrics that we saw earlier, any of these 4 features the customer is using would see these returns. So, for example, because they're selling products in bundles, it will be quicker to put together a quote because we have a standardized way of selling now. This will also make it easier for new sales reps to learn how to sell because they're prompted on what to sell together. We'll also see a reduction in the approval time because, again, product mixes are more standardized, and that'll flow easier. And then we'll see deals closing quicker because of all of these factors above. So we really see all 4 of these return on investment metrics that Salesforce states. So next we're going to look at a demo of these bundles that I keep referring to. But any questions before? Actually, sorry, I'll talk about the scenario and then I'll stop before we go into the system. So the scenario here is that Aoife is a sales rep with Cork Office Supplies. She has a new business lead for Ardley Law Firm who are setting up a new office in Dublin. Aoife is hoping to sell this company several printers and other office supplies. So that's what we're going to be quoting. So we're going to be jumping into the demo at the point of adding products to a quote, but I wanted to explain the steps that led to this point so that you get a picture of like how we ended up there. So the business lead for Ardley Law Firm came in from a web to lead query in Salesforce, and that web to lead page would have been on the Cork Office Supplies website. This lead then ended up in Aoife, the sales rep's queue in Salesforce, and she reached out to the potential customer and converted the lead to an account and opportunity in Salesforce once she had qualified the lead. It was from this opportunity then that she would have created the quote that we're going to be looking at. So I'll stop here for any questions before I jump into the system. Okay.
Looks like no questions at the moment, but looks like somebody was saying that they were having an issue seeing your slides. I'm not having the same issue at the moment anyway. I see your front end demo slide and that's set up just fine. So maybe there was a little bit of a lag.
Okay. So I'll jump in. So I have a quote here. Yeah. Okay. So I have a quote here. This is my quote page. And as I mentioned, this would have started out as a lead, converted to an account and opportunity, and that account and opportunity are actually related here. There would have been a button on the opportunity page just saying new quote with a couple of fields to fill in there. So this quote was created with like a start date and a term. And then from here, this is the quote page with lots of different CPQ fields a lot of them aren't used most of the time. But the most important thing is adding products. And we do that by clicking the Edit Lines button here. And sorry, as a side note, I'm logged in as Aoife McSweeney, who's the sales rep with Cork Office Supplies. And the account that I'm working with is Ardley Law Firm. And my contact that I'm working with is Ellen Ardley. So jumping into Edit Lines. So this is, forgot to take that discount away. This is where my products will be in a minute. I just don't have any products yet. You can see that I added in a start date of the 1st of August and I added in a term of 24. Those will be more relevant in a minute once we've selected some products. So I'll click the Add Products button. You can see there's lots of different products here. I didn't put time into kind of, making this more user-friendly in terms of what products should I pick and stuff like that. But I know that I want to sell some printers, so I can search for printer up here. And instead of 88 options under hardware, I can now see 4. So I'm going to choose this laser printer, and then I'll click select over here on the right. I can see some information about the products about the product, like, you know, the name, the product family. You could have the product description here as well, all to help the user to choose which product they want. And we can see the list price of it here as well. So I'm going to select this product. But what we're talking about here is how to sell products in bundles, and the laser printer product is a bundle. So we can see here that under this laser printer bundle, you can see that there's multiple different products that are broken out into different groups. So I've got some paper options, I've got some tray options, toner, maintenance, and warranty. So I can, you know, you can see that some of these are selected by default. I can deselect paper if I want to. But then these options down here for tray, one of these trays needs to be included. And then maintenance, manual, usually it comes with the printer as a maintenance kit as well, and as a warranty. So as a user, as a sales rep, I would be configuring what I'm discussing with the customer. They said they want a high capacity toner. They also said they want both letter and A4 paper. So I'm going to add a bit more A4. I'm also going to choose the maintenance kit as well. Just checking my notes to make sure I cover everything. Perfect. So now that I've chosen the laser bundle, I can see back in this view that's called the quote line editor, I can see the product and the sub products that have been selected. So you can see this like indentation, which means that all of these items are under the laser printer bundle. Just going through the different columns in this user interface, we have the product code, the name, the quantity, which is where I would change the quantity if needed. This is telling me the list price, and then it will calculate the net total over here on the right. So I'll just do a couple of things here to show you how some of this works. Oh, and just to note that you can see the prices here, but this one states that it's included. And that's something that we can configure on the product. You can see that it has a price of $0. So it would, it just doesn't show a price for that product. And that can then be shown on the output document as included. Okay, so you can see that the total of this is 1,670 right now. If the two things I was going to change are to change the quantity of this bundle. So let's say if I was ordering 2 printers, let's say, and you can see that the letter paper and the A4 paper have different quantities. So, and the rest of the products have a quantity of 1. So I'll just change this to 2 and hit calculate. And you can see that the paper products don't change and the other products do. And that's because of the relationship of these products to the bundle parent. And we'll talk about some of that when we go into the back end of this bundle product in a little bit. The other thing that I was going to show was that if you take a look at this warranty product, this is $100. And I'll just go back to a quantity of 1 for a second to make this easier to see. You can see that all of these products are just $1,000, $50. This is based on the quantity times the list price. And then down here, you can see that this warranty has a list price of 100, but it has a net price, a net total of 200. And that's because it is a 2-year term. And so if I change this to 12 months and hit calculate, I can see that that's adjusted down to 100. So it's just automated calculation based on the term. You can also have like partial years as well. And then one more thing to show you is just if I add a discount and I hit calculate, I can apply it across all the products on this quote. It's just not applying it to certain ones that I would define, like maybe you say you don't give a discount on the warranty, and there's no need to give a discount on a $0 product. So I'll take questions now if anybody wanted to ask anything about the user interface. If not, I'll get back to the talk, and then we'll be looking at the back end of the bundle in a little bit.
Just a quick question here. If the price of a product has got more attributes which can control the price of even one single quantity, How do we achieve that?
Yeah, you can have the attributes determine the price with something called like a price rule, which is CPQ automation. But you could basically have that defined within the bundle, and you could define, like, I'll be getting into the features of standard quotes versus CPQ quotes in a little bit, and that's one that I was going to refer to, that you could have an attribute like if you're selling a pair of headphones and you're selling a red versus a black set of headphones, and you could store one product in the system, but you could have the user input an attribute like the color, and that would change the price of the product dynamically, and that would avoid SKU proliferation or duplicate SKUs by just having one in the system and having the user be able to configure what the price of it is based on an attribute like the color. Does that answer the question?
Yeah, thank you. Thanks. Yes.
Okay. No problem. Okay, if nothing else, I'll jump back into the deck. Okay, so now that we've seen one customer use case, we can talk about what other customers could be using before using CPQ. So they might be using standard quotes with products, and we will be comparing standard quotes to CPQ quotes on the next slide just after this. They could be using standard opportunities, and with this they might be using opportunities and products, or they could just be using the amount field on the opportunity and saying this opportunity is $100,000 with no information about what products are being sold. Or they could have like a multi-pick list that says they want product A, B, and C, but just doesn't give you as much traceability and control as something like CPQ. Thirdly, like Cork office supplies, they could be working in spreadsheets and not be in Salesforce at all, or they could be using another CPQ tool like Zuora. So the last slide in this section is standard and CPQ quote features. There's quite a bit in this, so I'm just going to compare the two and try to talk through some examples so that it makes a bit more sense. So I wanted to touch on these differences because I find that it's really valuable to know whether CPQ is the right fit or if Sales Cloud is enough. So I think you'll see those differences kind of at the outset of this. So with standard quotes and products, products can only be sold standalone. They can't be bundled. So with CPQ, you can sell in bundles. As we said, that would increase the revenue. You can have business rules that are enforced for which products like must be sold together or cannot be sold together, all those kind of product dependencies. You can have product attributes. This is what we were just talking about, defining the color of the headphones so that you can avoid having two SKUs for black and red headphones, as an example. So those are the features under the products item. In terms of pricing, with standard quotes, the list price is pulled from the price book, as it is in CPQ as well. But with standard quotes, the user can only apply a discount manually on top of it. Whereas with CPQ and pricing, you have lots of different features. The recurring products, as we just saw in the demo, you can change the term from 24 months to 12 months, for example, and your price is updated automatically. Volume discounting is where if the customer wants to buy more, they can get a better discount. We'll be talking about this in a little bit with the price waterfall coming up here in a bit. You can have percent of total pricing, which can be applied so that, for example, a warranty price might be a percentage of whatever is being warranted. And then you can also have multi-year ramps. So let's say if I was selling phone plans to Ardley Law Firm, so we could increase the number of phone plans as they plan to grow their team over time. So it could be 5 plans in year 1, 20 plans in year 2, etc. And you could have each year priced separately. So that's the multi-year ramps. So that's the second feature. Third feature, approvals. So it's standard quotes. You're using standard approvals, which is part of Salesforce. They can be pretty simple, and they will run in a serial fashion. So one after the other, say if they need to go to different teams. While with CPQ, with certain CPQ licenses, which I'll be touching on in a little bit, you will sometimes have a package called Advanced Approvals, which has some nice features in it, like parallel approvals, where this can be helpful if you have different teams that you're discounting or that your approvals are going to. So let's say if you have discounting approvals and you have term approvals and you have product approvals. I actually have a screenshot of that if we have time to look at that in a little bit as well. The next thing with advanced approvals is smart approvals. So this is an interesting one. It's where if an approval is rejected and resubmitted for approval, it may not require reapproval if it's within a certain threshold of the original quote that was sent. So it's just makes it more efficient in some cases. And finally, there's a way to preview the approvals before submitting so that sales can make an adjustment if they don't want to escalate all the way up the chain of approvals. That's the screenshot that I have in a little bit. So hopefully we'll get time to take a look at that. Fourth section is the quote documents. So with standard quotes, we can generate a simple document with text and merged fields. We can have a product table and signature blocks, as far as I'm aware, but it just has some limited flexibility. While with CPQ quotes, you can do all these things, but you can also have conditional functionality for showing and hiding columns and tables and other text. So for example, you might display certain quote terms based on what products are selected on the quote, or you might hide the discount column on a case-by-case basis if the customer is sensitive to some of that pricing and you don't want to show what the discount is. You can also add custom styling to your quote documents, to your CPQ documents, I should say, as well. As a side note, with the quote documents, neither standard quotes nor CPQ quotes include a solution for e-signature or redlining, but we will be talking about that in a little bit with RLM, or Revenue Lifecycle Management. Final section here is for post-quoting, or what happens after you've quoted and the deal has been won. So with standard quotes, you can add automation for generating orders for provisioning purposes. So for example, the fulfillment team can put together printers and other supplies so that they can be shipped. For CPQ, again, we can do automation with orders. It is a bit more advanced than the standard quotes. But the real game changer with post-quoting and CPQ is the ability to generate contracts and renewals in an automated fashion. So this allows customers to track all their products under one contract. Any changes will update that contract, and a renewal can be automatically generated with all the products included. So this is something I haven't included in the demo, but if you want to see it, reach out to me after the webinar and I'd be happy to walk you through it if you're curious. So that's all the points on this. As I said earlier, this knowledge is really helpful to determine whether CPQ is needed or not. Standard quotes might work for some businesses, but really they would have to have kind of basic quoting requirements. If you think about the Cork office supplies customer, standard quotes wouldn't have given them everything that CPQ would. So like the bundling and the automated pricing, they wouldn't have that. But they would be able to do standard approvals and they would have a simple quote document. So it's really up to the customer whether they want to invest in CPQ or not. I'll stop here before going into the architecture section next, if there's any questions. So we're kind of going into the technical part. Okay. So then on to the second section. Now that we've looked at the front end, I think some of you are eager to get under the hood. So we'll look at the highlights of the architecture, a bit of a back-end demo of some of the features, and we'll talk about some of the technical challenges and how they can be avoided when working with CPQ. So firstly, CPQ, three concepts here in the design. So first of all, CPQ uses some standard objects, for example, the opportunity, the product, the order, the contract, the asset, and it uses lots and lots of custom objects, for example, the quote, the subscription. Secondly, and probably the biggest thing to know about the CPQ package is that the configuration is made up of records. So, for example, product bundles are made up of related records, including products, product options, and features. And we'll be talking about that just after this slide. And we'll look in the system and look through the records to the back end of the front end that we just saw a minute ago. And the last point here that we'll be talking about also in more detail is that CPQ calculates pricing according to a predefined order that it calls the price waterfall. This is where there are different discounts applied one by one to get to the final price that's shown to the customer. But as I said, we'll talk about that and I'll recap on the concept before we talk about it in more detail. So let me just check. Okay, yeah. So we're going to be looking at the back end of the bundle configuration. So what we were selling a while ago, and I'll just open up the bundle so you can, actually, interesting thing here is on this quote, how I get back into, you know, if I wanted to switch out one product for another, let's say they decided they wanted the other toner or whatever, I would click this wrench icon in the top right, which is how I reconfigure the bundle product. So just to show you the front end of this again, this is our laser printer, and we have all of these items that are available. As a side note, the laser printer itself is a product record, and all of these items that are listed here are also product records in the system. They are connected together. Like the laser printer is connected to all of the other products through an object called the product option, which is how you make up bundles in CPQ. And then all of the product options are grouped together in what we call features. So we're going to be looking at kind of some of the different settings on these different records, the product, so the laser printer and whatever other products we want to look at, the product option, and a feature, and we'll look at some of the settings. So this is the laser printer product. You can see there's lots of different, like obviously the product object is standard in Salesforce, so it would have a certain number of its own fields, like the product code, product family. But there's lots of other fields that come with CPQ that control like how it can be configured in a bundle, or how it is priced. This is a list price product, whether it appears on renewal or not, all that kind of stuff. And then I can look at the things that are related to this product, which would be the features here. We can see paper, tray, toner, maintenance, and warranty. Those are all of the features or groups that I saw in the user interface when I was configuring what I wanted to be within my bundle. So I'll just jump into one of those features now. I'll look at the paper one, which was the first one. So I can see, oops, sorry. I can see that it's number 1, which means it appears at the top of the list of all of the features. I can see that it has minimum options of 0, which means the user doesn't have to select any of the options in this bundle if they don't want to. If I made this 1, it would look like one of the toner or tray features where we had to choose one or other of the items in there. I also see the configured SKU in here, which is the bundle or the parent to this feature. You notice that it doesn't mention what the products are in here, because that would be a one-to-many relationship. So there are many options in this feature, and I could see those if I clicked over here onto the related. Then I'm going to look at one of these product options. Yeah, I think. So the two product options that I had in this feature were the two different papers, the letter and the A4. And again, with this, so this is printer, paper, letter. And you can see that it's tied to the laser printer. This is its bundle parent, and the feature that it's in is the paper feature or group. The number is 1 because it's the first to appear in the list. It's selected by default, but it's not required. So you could have a product that's selected and required. In other words, the user cannot deselect it. I could have done that for the manual if we wanted to, because you would always include a manual. The quantity is 5, so that's just the default quantity that will appear. But the quantity is editable in this situation because for this use case, it's paper. We want them to be able to define how much they want. And then another important data point here is this type. So you can have different types of options in your bundle. And this one is a related product. And what that meant is that when I went and changed the quantity of the bundle, I could see that the paper did not change. And that was because it had like a loose relationship with the bundle parent. It's a related product, whereas the other items were all components, which means they have a tighter relationship with bundle parent. And so their quantity is connected or is inherited from the parent. Yeah, and then I was just going to jump back to the product and show you some of the other related things. So that's basically what we looked at. So I'm on the laser printer product, and I can see all my features here. I can also see all of the options that are under this bundle. I can also see here this list called optional 4, which is any parent to this laser printer. So the laser printer is actually an option under a desktop computer bundle also. So you can have, this would be a nested bundle, which you can have in CPQ as well. Some of the other lists that we have here are the price book entries for this product. And then we have the cost. You can track that in CPQ as well. So you might think, you know, we've done a lot of clicking around to see like how different things are related with the products in CPQ. And so you might think, isn't there an easier way to see all of this related product information? And there is now with Revenue Lifecycle Management. So this is what's called the product structure in RLM, and it allows you to see these related items underneath this Apple iPhone 11. And I can easily, like obviously this is just a screenshot, but you know, there's easy ways for me to just kind of click the plus button and add new items in line here. So it's a much nicer interface with everything in one place for me to do that. I'm going to jump onto the price waterfall next. And I'm going to be touching on RLM as a concept in a little bit, so I'm not going to jump into that right now. Okay, so the next concept is the price waterfall. So as I said, this is the order in which different discounting are applied to get to the final price that's shown to a customer. So let's say Cork Office Supplies are selling their printers for $1,000. We just saw the list price, that's what the list price was. But they have a discount if you buy 5 or more together, so that the customer would get a 20% volume discount. As well as that, sales reps like IFA are allowed to apply an additional discount of 10%. So what would the net price of these products be for Ardley Law Firm? So with the CPQ, the order is predefined. So the list price is $1,000, which is pulled from the price book. Then the 20% system discount is applied. And and finally, the additional discount of 10% is applied, and that's how we get to the price of $720. So, oh yeah, and this is the this is what the price waterfall actually looks like. So we start at the list price, then the system discount is applied here, and that's what gives us the regular price. Then the additional discount is applied, which gets us to the customer price or the resulting net price, because there are no partner discounts or distributor discounts. But what if we did offer partner discounts as well? So what if Cork Office Supplies were working with a third-party company who were bringing them in leads to help them to break into the European market? And let's say they were giving those customers an addition, or they were giving those partners an additional 5% discount. So in that case, it would look like, oh, messed up my automation. Perfect. Okay. I just gave away the game. So again, the list price would be pulled from the price book, the volume discount would be applied, and then the reps additional discount, and then the partner discount. So there is, as I said, this is the order that it applies in. The partner discount is the last one that's come in, and that's what brings it to the net price. So there's one thing wrong with this that I hear customers complain about, and that is that the additional discount, which is here in the middle, should be last. Because when it's set up this way, sales reps can end up needing another spreadsheet to back into calculating the additional discount. And actually, CPQ does have a way to handle this. It's a setting in CPQ called additional discount last. But I will say that it comes with its own kind of gotchas and considerations. So isn't there an easier way to control the pricing waterfall? And there is now an RLM these are called pricing procedures, where you can define, this is a drag and drop interface where you can define the order of all of these prices. So you could just have the manual discount, they're calling it here, or additional discount be the last in the order. And you can control this to have as many steps in it as you want. And this can be defined for individual products or a group of products as you wish. The last concept I'm going to move on to from a technical perspective before talking about the technical challenges is preview approvals. And this is what I was mentioning a little bit earlier. So this is just a quick kind of screenshot of it. And basically this is how a sales rep can preview their approvals on their quote before submitting it so that they can make any changes that they want to. So this is broken into separate approval chains is what they're called in advanced approvals. So on the left here, you've got custom products. So if there's a custom product being quoted that an engineer needs to review, that might go to the engineering team. There could also be some non-standard terms that the customer is requesting. For example, they want to negotiate on paying all fees up front. This would be reviewed by the legal team. And there might be a discount applied that requires approval as well, which would take steps through the hierarchy all the way up to the CEO. So the sales rep might see this and think, okay, I don't want to escalate this to the CEO. It says here that it goes up, that's if it's greater than 30%. So maybe I'll bring it down to 30. So this is their way to preview. And if they want to submit for approval, if they think, no, I'm fine with this, they can just do it from here. But I've always quite liked this.
Sorry, is the screen being shared? It's inside Salesforce screen or just a slide deck?
It's a slide that says preview approvals.
Maybe I'm seeing something different.
Are you seeing the Salesforce system?
I'm seeing the CPQ price waterfall slide deck.
Oh, it might just be lagging because that was the slide just previous to this.
Okay, sorry.
No problem. Thanks for letting us know. You're seeing it okay?
It's all good, Eric.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. Yeah, preview approvals.
Okay. Thanks for confirming. Okay, so that was the last of the technical concepts. We're going to move on to some technical challenges that you can come across on projects and how those can be avoided. So firstly, as we said, the configuration is made up of data. And so this means we need to consider the deployment strategy for not only the CPQ metadata, so that could be custom fields, flows, validation rules, all your standard Salesforce stuff, standard Salesforce stuff, as well as CPQ stuff. You can have, there's lots of CPQ custom fields as well, but there's also CPQ data. So as we were just seeing, the product options and features. So nowadays there are tools like GearSet that make it a lot easier. But when we first started out doing CPQ, or when I first started implementing it, it was all spreadsheets and manual data loading. So it's very painful. The second is that CPQ can be hard to debug because it's in the form of data and doesn't offer a lot of validation around invalid configuration. So for example, if I'm setting a field in a price rule and I mistype the API name, I can save the price rule, go to my quote, add some products, and it might only then throw an error, unlike a formula field or a flow in Salesforce that won't let you save something that's invalid. So avoiding this is just practice and being a bit more careful when you're building. Third, you can hit issues when you're building out CPQ that you might expect to work a certain way and it doesn't. So the documentation has definitely gotten much better over the years. So you might find an article or a known issue stating that there is a product gap, or you might have to create a case with Salesforce and they will investigate for you. But in the end, you might need to actually design around the product gap. So there are certain limitations that you basically just learn over time. But it's really important to report the issues to Salesforce because you could be kind of wasting time trying to figure out what's wrong. And the last point is if existing contracts from another system or spreadsheets need to be loaded into CPQ, these can be really challenging because of precision with calculations. The way that you're calculating prices now might have changed, which can cause problems. You might need to merge contracts if they were stored separately previously, and you might just have bad data. I'm sure everyone has seen examples of that in the past. So my advice here is it's never too early to start talking about legacy data. And you might need to dig right into the data and come up with a strategy of how you're going to transform the data ultimately into the new CPQ data model. So that's the technical part. I'm next going to be jumping into licensing, tools, and RLM, and then getting into our conclusion. So any questions at this point?
Thanks for the high level overview covering a lot of detailed some aspects of CPQ. In terms of custom pricing, I just want to clarify. Maybe you had already covered. Maybe I just missed that. In terms of custom pricing, let's say there is a product, which has got a list price or a standard price, but again, the sales rep wants to customize the code, which is not there inside Salesforce. He wants to edit the price and then enter a specific code just for that product for that client, and it is not shareable with other sales reps in the organization.
It's not shareable with other sales reps in the organization.
Yes, which means it's a custom code only valid for that rep. For his or her client.
Yeah.
It's a end use, yes, as you can say.
Okay. So that would probably be just how discounts are negotiated on a customer by customer basis. And that's what the additional discount would be when you're first negotiating a contract. And then with customer specific pricing, there is a feature called contract pricing, where once you've created a database or a table of those prices, anytime that customer buys those products with you in the future, it would just pick up those prices and use those prices on the next sale. And what you can actually do is you can load into that table of contract prices so that when you quote, it will start picking up those prices. Or you can say, when we first sell to this customer, store what the contract price is, and anytime we sell to them again, use that price again. So I think that would probably be the feature you'd be looking for there. Okay,
thanks.
Just before you move on, Leanne, and don't take a lot of time on this if you feel you want to get to other things, but you'd mentioned that, previously it could be quite a journey to actually take all of these object records, which account for the configuration of CPQ, and move those effectively in the right sequence into production. So I know myself, there are a number of tools these days that can help with that process. I think I can think of 3 or 4 of the major providers that now offer support for CPQ. But would you say that it's probably worthwhile for customers to look at a solution like that when looking at CPQ?
That's a good question. It depends the scale of the customer, I would say, and how much you're working on projects in different sandboxes, and how much you have, different teams working on projects. Because something like, I'll just refer to the tool that we use, which is GearSet, but we have an add-on to our license where basically you can see like a metadata comparison, like what the records are on both sides, and that's because a unique ID has been created between them. And really, you might need that level when you're kind of a bigger customer, and just have multiple things on the go in different sandboxes and stuff like that. I've seen it be most useful on projects then. But if you're talking about an initial implementation, I would always be using something like this.
I would have had experience with using that actual GearSet plugin, and it was great. Like, as in, particularly for advanced like CI/CD processes where you're working and integrating with other teams and other even members within your teams, it's great. Because again, even the ability to roll back, there's a reasonably new feature for like a SOCL query builder, so you can grab the records you need and deploy them. Time saving,
totally,
massively. And the caveat to that is, it's an enterprise tool as an enterprise pricing, so it may not, it may not suit all customers. So sometimes you have to get into spreadsheets and go that way. So definitely GearSet is one I definitely recommend as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And like thinking about before we had that add-on with a tool like that, there is also like, you can just have better maintenance internally between your teams of, like, I worked with one customer before where they had a spreadsheet or like a wiki page where they tracked what the latest unique ID of all of the different configuration objects was. So if you're setting up new records, you'll say, okay, what's the next ID? Okay, I'm going to take that one, and I'll now update the wiki page to say, don't take any of the numbers before. I've used that one. You take the next one. So at least if you have teams more in communication, you'd be better set up for if you don't have a tool like this.
Yeah, definitely. I'm having PTSD flashbacks.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, I'll jump on then for the last section before the conclusion. So we're going to talk about some other things that you might consider in a project. So CPQ licensing, other tools that might be needed in implementation, also competitor tools, and we'll touch on RLM here as well, because I haven't actually given an introduction on it. So yeah, the CPQ licenses. So just to clarify on the terminology, the CPQ package and the billing package live under the Revenue Cloud umbrella. So a customer would buy CPQ and billing licenses, not Revenue Cloud licenses. And Revenue Lifecycle Management now falls under the Revenue Cloud umbrella as well. With CPQ, you can have the basic and the plus version. The main differences are that CPQ Plus includes advanced approvals, which we talked about earlier as well. And it also includes advanced order management and usage pricing, which some customers need. Then with CPQ and billing, you can generate invoices from your CPQ orders. You can set invoice schedules. You can define how products are billed and taxed. And there's some other pieces around payments and revenue recognition as well. And finally, you can expose CPQ in partner and customer communities as well with those licenses. So just a consideration around licensing is that if anyone needs to consume CPQ data, be that view or edit, they will need a CPQ license to be able to see that information. So jumping on to complementary and competitive tools. So the complementary tools may or may not be needed in a project. So for example, with document signature. So with an e-signature tool, a user can click a button on a quote, which will send the document to the customer. Customer will open the link and electronically sign the document. I'm sure you've all signed something like this, like a job offer, for example. And then it will write back to Salesforce and update the status to say, we now have a signed document. Without an e-signature tool, the user would just download the generated document for CPQ, from CPQ. They would send it to the customer themselves. Then when they get it back, they would update a checkbox or a status in Salesforce manually to say, we now have signed document. So yeah, it's all things that are kind of complementary to CPQ that you may or may not use. The other tools you might need could be for redlining the contract document, so negotiating the terms of agreement, as we mentioned earlier. You might use advanced quoting if you work with a bill of materials. You might need something like that. You might use a payment processor like Stripe, or you might do some invoicing out of NetSuite. The thing to keep in mind with these tools is how they interact with CPQ. So if they're downstream of CPQ, you need to know what information they're expecting. For example, previous customers have had to change some settings in NetSuite, on the NetSuite side, so that it can consume contract cancellations or negative orders. So that's just a consideration for any implementation you might be working on. Then moving on to competitor tools. So this is also good to know, to be aware of what the competitor tools can do. So as a Salesforce CPQ implementer, you want to know this to determine what expectations a customer might have from a CPQ tool versus the competition. And as a CPQ customer, you might want to, or you do want to figure out what the best tool is for you. And some of these tools offer both CPQ and billing and other solutions, and some are suited for certain industries. Salesforce CPQ, as a note, is best suited to SaaS companies selling recurring products. So that's where you see some of the biggest benefits, like the contracts, amendments, and renewals that I mentioned earlier. So before our conclusion, I'm going to talk about RLM and my observations on it. So as I mentioned before, this is a new offering by Salesforce under the Revenue Cloud umbrella. Salesforce said they asked customers what they wanted from a revenue lifecycle management tool, and the result is a tool with these features. So there's more flexibility with products and pricing structure. Customers can sell across channels in a uniform manner. They can also generate contract documents with terms and redlining, which we know doesn't come with CPQ. And then they can also visualize fulfillment and provisioning process out of RLM, which again doesn't come with CPQ. And customers can have this process all flow into billing and invoicing. So as you can see, some of these features are generally available, while others are in pilot or coming soon. So next, I'm just going to talk about some of the particular benefits that I've observed from my learnings and from the information that I've consumed. Some of the cool things that I came across were sellers can see the price waterfall in the UI while they're quoting. So this, I've had this request from customers before to help reps to understand and explain what the pricing is to the customer. especially if you have the order. I guess it would have been an ask with CPQ because, you know, it was in a more rigid order and it was harder for them to understand how it had ended up that way. The next point is tax estimations can be included in quote proposal documents, which again, I've had an ask for before. A company might do this today and want to support it. The document builder comes with a drag and drop UI. So who doesn't love, you know, gamifying their day job? We can also collaborate with external users through Salesforce contracts. And this will make the redlining process more efficient. And then lastly, with asset lifecycle management, there's much more reporting and visualization. So you can see what actually happened during the life of a contract. So a customer might have started with 20 seats. They might have increased to 25. Then they might have cancelled because they were switching to another tier of the product, or say, or a different product, like a different bundle. Say if they were moving up from bronze to silver, for example, they would cancel one product and buy the other. So these are some of the benefits that I observed. But of course, it's a new tool, so there's some considerations to be made. And those that I've listed here are some of the features are still in beta or coming soon, as we saw with the provisioning and the billing. And of course, because it's a new tool, it comes with bugs and patch releases. The second point is there's more setup or configuration. So think of RLM as more like Lego blocks, where the system gives you the ability to build the functionality, whereas CPQ might have done some of this automatically, but it might have been more rigid in what was offered. The third point, there's potentially a need for custom developers to support. So this is again due to the flexibility. We can call APIs of RLM directly, but we need the technical knowledge to be able to do that. The fourth point, pricing is a little bit higher, and it will also have a usage-based element, which CPQ did not. The usage-based part of it is based on the number of events or API callouts. This is a bit vague right now. I actually asked some of the Revenue Cloud team about it when I was on site at World Tour London. So I think it's going to take some time to figure out exactly how to predict what usage a customer will consume. So I'm interested to learn more about that. And then the last point is there's no migration plan from CPQ as of yet. So I was on a recent roadmap webinar where Salesforce themselves said, we don't plan to end of life CPQ anytime soon. We have a huge customer base. So that's RLM and my benefits and considerations. I'm just going to move on to the conclusion, and then we'll be moving into questions anyway. So CPQ, like career lessons learned. You know, I've been in CPQ for the last kind of 9 years, or Salesforce for 9 and CPQ for most of that. So CPQ has helped me to differentiate myself in the Salesforce ecosystem, definitely. But I would say it's important to make sure that you're staying up to date with the Salesforce core functionality as well, so that you don't get pigeonholed. If you do already know CPQ, I would say the domain knowledge is invaluable. And if you don't know CPQ, maybe now it's a time to learn RLM, because it's basically a level playing field. You know, it's new. Nobody knows it. I think there is not a live project yet. So a live customer. So yeah, that's it. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to chat on any of this content, on your thoughts on CPQ and RLM. I'm always interested to chat. Before I finish, I've just noted some trailheads on CPQ and RLM and how to set up a CPQ developer org. Thanks for listening. Questions?
Oh, well, I certainly have one, since you had the opportunity to talk to some of the members of RLM. So I understand from Salesforce more broadly that they have a goal to bring some of their major acquisitions, Marketing Cloud engagement, for example, which we're now seeing the first iteration of that through Marketing Cloud growth, RLM being the first iteration where we're starting to see some delivery in the, let's say some delivery in the configure price quote space that's on platform. And I think that's one of the major differentiators in terms of architecture, is that it's built on Salesforce as compared to when SteelBrick developed it. As you see when you get into the backend code, that it's kind of developed in a different manner. And that does cause some additional overhead for the Salesforce product teams to be able to manage that software and extend new features like we're seeing with Copilot, for example. So I don't think in the short term RLM is nearly a replacement for CPQ, especially for things like advanced approvals, usage-based pricing, some of the other things you pointed out. But did you get any sense, or did you have a conversation with the RLM team about that topic or that direction? Or does anybody have any musings? Yeah, I'm just wondering aloud kind of where this might be going in the future.
I think it, like, I don't think it will be a replacement, because I think it's just suited to different customers. Like I mentioned with the flexibility of it, you know, talking about some of that, like the number of objects and things that you configure with all of the products, everything that comes with it is very flexible, you know, but a lot of customers don't need that. So, you know, they might just stick to the option that they already have, that's costing less money. You know, time will tell, I think, with the with what happens with CPQ in the longer term. But it is a more flexible and system, but I don't think it's right for all customers necessarily. Anyone else?
One other pesky question I had for you was, being that you're located in Canada, had you any need to turn on the French version of CPQ, for example? Because I know that CPQ does support some languages natively. I wonder if you had any experience actually using that feature.
Never had a need, actually. No. Yeah. No, we. I've worked with. I worked with mostly US customers, actually. But I did have a customer out of Montreal before, but they worked in English. Yeah.
Well, folks, now's your chance. Any other questions for Leanne?
I just can't believe you didn't get an opportunity to rant and rave about one of the coolest features in CPQ. Twin fields.
So I actually had a slide and I took it out.
Okay.
Although I think I have it.
I love it. It's a weird quirk of the system.
Okay, I'm going to bring it up because you mentioned it. I think I have it here somewhere. Let me see. Oh, maybe I hid it. 1 second. There it is. It's hidden.
Yes.
So,
yeah,
twin field mapping, to try to explain, basically this is, if you have, let's say you had the, on your product, you said like the different, if you had an attribute on your product, that could be the color. And you could say, you could define what colors are available for certain products on that product record. Then you would want to make that available to the other objects that are in the life cycle of that product. So it starts as a product, it gets created as a quote line, then it gets created as an order line, an opportunity, product, and a subscription. So all of these objects, what you can do is, instead of writing automation to pass the information to each of those objects, you can just set up a field that has the same data type and the same API name on each of those objects, and it will automatically pass the information through. There's also, so like that works for, you know, the line level objects like the opportunity, product, and the quote line, and this shows the direction of them and everything. But there's also, from the contract, the opportunity and renewal opportunity and things like that as well. I've definitely been caught out by this before, where because it goes, you know, quote line to subscription to amendment quote line or renewal quote line. It keeps continuing through the life cycle, which is a great benefit of it. But then I've had like a bug where I'm like, where is this coming from? I don't understand. And it's because it just has a field with the same API name that it's automatically passing through. Yeah. So, yeah, really cool feature. Yeah.
Yeah, it's phenomenal. It like saves you data load. You know, it's just so weird and it's so unusual, but it is really cool.
Pretty unique, yeah.
Very unique. One thing, the only issue I've ever had with it, and again, working in a sandbox, in order for the changes to actually proliferate, you need to refresh the build. That's the only, and it doesn't happen in production, but if you're, because again, I've been there where you panic and you're like, everything's done, it's correct, it's right, and then nothing's happening. If you go back and actually refresh it, just if anyone, if anyone gets to that moment of sweat, that 30-second freak out where you're like, why isn't it working? It will. Yeah.
Here we go.
Good stuff.
Any others? If not, I can let you close the meeting.
Yeah, I still get you.
Well, I just want to say for those who stuck around, thank you very much for engaging. There were certainly some great comments and some helpful questions throughout, so really appreciate that. If anybody does have any follow-up questions, I think your first port of call would be the private chatter group, because there you can ask your questions. Leanne, when she has time, can answer them, and everyone else will benefit from that as well. Okay, well, big thank you to you as well, Leanne. Thanks so much. That was such a clear, concise overview of, as you said in the top of the hour, like a very comprehensive tool. So well done.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's excellent.